Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the CRIB Child Rights in Business podcast, a bi-monthly podcast brought to you by the Centre for Child Rights in Business that explores the opportunities and challenges in the tea industry from a human rights due diligence perspective. Just like our previous two episodes that were recorded during the Colombo International Tea Convention, this conversation between Ines Kaempfer, the Centre's CEO, and Madhuri Nanda, Director for South Asia of the Rainforest Alliance, also took place during that conference. In the conversation, you'll learn about the Rainforest Alliance landscape-level work beyond the farm that addresses the various systemic issues in sustainable agriculture and how she sees her members potentially strengthening interventions around human rights and livelihoods. The conversation also highlights some of the initiatives that are already being implemented that address issues that fall within the scope of the CSDD. That and more is coming up.
Hi everyone, it's Ines again. I'm here at the Colombo Tea Convention. I'm now here with Nanda Madhuri, and she is the Director South Asia of the Rainforest Alliance. Thank you so much for taking the time so late in the day to talk to us. Maybe you can just use a few minutes to introduce yourself and to those listeners who might not know the Rainforest Alliance. I don't know if there are, but just a few quick sentences on what you do.
Thank you so much, Ines, for having me here. It's a privilege to talk with you today. The past 2 days of the conference has been fantastic. So this podcast, this conversation just makes so much sense. My name is Madhuri Nanda, and I'm the Director for South Asia, which means I look after India, Sri Lanka operations primarily for Rainforest Alliance. Rainforest Alliance is a non-profit organization. We are present in more than 70 countries. We work primarily on certification program, which is better known to everyone. But what is lesser known is also the landscape level work that we do beyond farm that we need to work at to address the various systemic issues which are existing in the sustainable agriculture. How do we promote sustainable agriculture to address challenges, for example, related to land degradation, biodiversity, human rights issues. So our standard is one of the market-led tool, which needs a proper market for it to be very successful. So we also realize that there are other landscape level interventions and approaches which are sometimes needed. And we are currently looking at different pieces of it, and I would be very happy to talk more about it as we go along.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you already got in a little bit in what I was thinking of talking to you about, because obviously that focus to look into as human rights and livelihoods has been a very strong focus of the Rainforest Alliance. And kind of having her, like after all those discussions that we had this week, what do you take from those discussions also towards your members, and where do you think you together with your members can maybe continue to focus on, strengthen interventions, activities, or the way we're doing business in order to really create that impact on the ground that I think we're all really craving for?
I know. If I talk specifically about Sri Lanka and the Sri Lanka tea industry, the sustainability commitment in the sector is huge. They have been a part of our certification program for a very long time, more than a decade. And I think in our certification program itself, it has an embedded approach towards human rights and livelihood. Two very sensitive, very difficult topics to address. It's not very easy. But what we are trying to look at with the update of our standard version 2020, we came up with assess and address approach. We earlier probably had more of a pass and fail approach for our members. So they would like to shy away from any issues that they may have with the workers or within their organization. But with the assess and address approach, there is an opportunity for them to assess what are the social issues which exist and have a mechanism, a remediation measure in place to address them. So this provides an opportunity for them to not just put everything under the carpet, but actually bring that to forefront and demonstrate during the audit how they are going to be addressing those issues. So the certification system does provide us an approach how you can deal with it. So it's a good tool. Mm-hmm. How much it is being implemented at the garden level, we'll come to that maybe a little bit in a while. The other key element that you mentioned on livelihood, I think that's something that, again, in the standard, we do understand that it's a very important element for, we've been talking and hearing all day about living wage and workers' conditions in the gardens. And the beauty of Rainforest Alliance certification program is that we work on one hand with the producers, but also at the other hand with the buyers. So it provides us a platform where we can nudge a little bit buyers to also share responsibility of sustainability with the producers. So ultimately, not everything has to be done at the producer level. So as part of the, again, 2020 standard, we came up with the concept of sustainability differential and sustainability investment. These were two elements that we wanted to cover under the shared responsibility, where we said that not only you give premium over and above the market premium, which is the sustainability differential piece, but also you need to invest into the gardens so that you are able to support these gardens in meeting the compliance. For example, if there's an infrastructure need, if there is any PPE needs or anything that is needed as an investment at the garden level, then the buyer or the brand needs to support the producers in that as well. So as part of the standard itself, with its update, we are trying to look at both elements very closely, because we do believe that that's really critical to having a sustainable agriculture in place.
And that is very interesting, and I think very helpful actually to explain how really you want to, it's not just a standard, but it's actually investment. And I think it's very much aligned with my really becoming the CSDDD geek, because I seem to mention it in every conversation. But it is something that the directive is really pointing to, and that is investing into your, they call it chain of activities, but so that's investing into your suppliers and not just asking them to fulfill certain standards. I wanted to address, particularly in the tea sector, I think continuously, this issue around gender inequality, harassment, violence has been one that's been coming up. And you just kind of hinted a little bit too, there are sometimes challenges. And I wanted just to hear a little bit from RA's perspective. How are you looking to address these very difficult challenges that were very often very hidden, but also very embedded in certain ways of working, and kind of certification scheme like RA kind of tackle this issue through certification, or does it need other tools that we can get to the bottom of it?
Yes.
Sorry, I know that's a tough one.
Social issues are definitely sometimes difficult to address, uncover, also sometimes during the audits. It's a challenge, but I think what is really useful to know is that there is no way you can escape that. 70% of the workforce is women. With that large workforce, you cannot not address the gender issues. They definitely need to be in place. And again, I would come back to the assess and address approach, through which, whether it's grievance, whether it's gender, whether it's any other social issue, women's safety, they can be assessed by the management. That's what is mandated, and then addressed. But having said that, we also realize that the companies do not have necessarily that level of capacity to do that. It's not their business. They are into growing tea. And a lot of time in different conversations with the CHS, our certificate holders, they are like, we grow tea. What are you asking us to do? I mean, why? But they do also understand. So the intention is right. They do understand that they need to, but probably they need more training and capacity building for them to be able to see how can they implement these kind of tools. So at Rainforest Alliance, we do have a certification partner support, which means the members who are a part of certification program, We have trainers on ground who can go and do some trainings and capacity building for them. But having said that, and we keep doing that number of times, but we also realize that there is a lot of strength with different CSOs in the workspace who are already working with the companies who have a level of trust, because sometimes that plays a much important role in bringing that shift in the mindset that we can bring it forward. And we are now trying to associate. We are doing a small pilot also with the Center for Child Rights to see how we can create some gender champions within the estate in Sri Lanka. And if we are able to get success there, then we would be easily able to replicate it not just in Sri Lanka, but other places as well. As I've mentioned so many times, not one organization alone can do, not the company alone, not RA alone. We are criticized so many times as Rainforest Alliance. You have set the standard, and why is this not happening? Why you're not getting the prize? Why this thing? But at the same time, we all need to understand that it's the responsibility of different stakeholders coming together. So unless we get to that point, we won't be able to find a solution. So we do think that organizations who have the existing relationship, trust, where the workers or the management, because sometimes even the entry point for a discussion like that is difficult. So where you already have organizations who are working with the estates and the management, and there's a trust and confidence, why not join hands with them and work towards the common goal of trying to empower women in the tea sector?
That was a really great explanation, and I really appreciate understanding the certification as a tool, which, by the way, I think RA has done an amazing job. I mean, there's hardly a label in agriculture that has created so much scale and impact. And obviously, we all know there's limits to that, but I think I can hear that there's been a real journey and also understanding what it can achieve and what it cannot. And I think, again, from our side or from the center side, as we are collaborating, to be very honest, and already together, but this is, I think, a strong approach that we all building on each other's strengths, because, as you say, one thing alone is not going to do it. Any last words before we close this session, and maybe what are you expecting in the upcoming, or what are your hopes for the upcoming year, and particularly for the tea sector?
I think the challenges are humongous, from starting from climate change to livelihoods to social issues, you name it, and it exists in the tea sector. We don't have prices, there are a lot of issues around the tea sector. But I do think there is a ray of hope as well. We've been talking about sustainable agriculture for a very long time. And I think that there is a need to shift the needle towards regenerative agriculture so that we are able to restore the lands. We not just talk about protecting, but actually restoring. And once we do that, whether it's the soil health, whether it's the livelihoods, whether it's the biodiversity issues, I think once we start bringing that shift towards regenerative agriculture, we will definitely be able to achieve a better future for tea. We have started a pilot with green beverages in Sri Lanka. Fingers crossed, if we are able to get to the design, from the design phase to the implementation phase, then we would have more success stories to share, which are replicable for the entire sector.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we are looking forward to collaborating with you and continuing our discussions.
Thank you so much, Ines. It was lovely talking to you.
Thanks.
That's all for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you learned something from our podcast today and that it sparked new ideas or thoughts around human rights due diligence in the tea industry. If you'd like to discuss or explore today's topic further with us, or just leave feedback, we'd be happy to hear from you. Simply email info.sl@childrights-business.org. More information about the Centre's work, including the Mother and Child Friendly Seal for Responsible Business, can be found on our website, www.childrights-business.org. And don't forget to follow our podcast to not miss an episode. Until next time, goodbye.